Well, let's start with something broad and fundamental. So what do you think foreign policy means to you?
Since I believe 2017, 2018, since we had Reliance Jio and social media, I mean, a lot of people started to use smartphones. So this has actually democratized foreign policy in a way, and I think it's a two-way street, you know, because on one hand, we are all getting information about what's happening on ground in different nations and about what our nation is doing about it and what our leaders think about. And at the same time, we can also provide feedback to them because, you know, through social media, we get to interact with the foreign dignitaries as well as our leaders. So it's, you know, it's really improved. And I think public participation, as she very rightly mentioned, has increased a lot, and as well as the awareness and the interest that people hold in foreign policy these days.
From Mandal theory to Shadgun Siddhant, I feel like the contemporary Indian foreign policy touches a lot upon the manifestations of the ancient values. And I think at the end of the day, we as Gen Z, we wouldn't really, you know, watch Mahabharat with parents. And I think at that point of time, it becomes very important for us to understand and know about our roots, right?
I truly believe in our Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji's vision that we should have Vikas with Virasat. So it's like development along with your embracing your culture and your tradition. So I think that should be the way forward, not only in diplomacy and foreign affairs, but in every other sphere, whichever sphere we are focusing on.
I think in a way, like, we are able to understand the saga of the rising powers, the way we are, you know, transforming this vision into actually the actions that we are doing on the global landscape. So anything you would want to touch upon, the fact that how we are rebalancing the multipolarity, the globalization, and the vision and the stage India has in the contemporary census.
So there have been theories back in times that whenever something happened in a nation, that was actually accounted for some foreign power's hand. But if we see that today's India has that much of capability that it can definitely not take this excuse that there is an involvement for some uprising because of foreign and all like that.
Yeah, I agree with that as well, because I think that there is a sense of pride now that has come up. So earlier it may be possible that there were no foreign powers, but people were very vulnerable and they used to believe that there would be some foreign power, and you know, the political things used to happen. But now there's a sense of pride which has come in all the people when we see, you know, reels of our Honorable Foreign Minister S.J. Shankar ji, and you know, replying and giving it back to the Western counterparts and other nations who doubt us. So there's a sense of pride that has come in the last 10 years, and that's why I think people don't you know, agree that there can be any foreign hand that meddles us around. We are independent in our truest sense.
I think what we mean by all these arguments, and then, you know, in totality, the way we dignify and, you know, present the Western powers in such a superior format. And I think then the partnerships with different countries then becomes very important. So let's talk about that.
We are moving away from Eurocentrism. So I think the entire focus is now coming on the Indo-Pacific region, right? Because it's not only just economics and sea lanes of communication, but this is the world's most populous region. So, you know, the West is now looking at this region for markets as well. So there are a lot of things at stake, and I think that it's India and the Indo-Pacific region which is now the future, and it will determine, you know, the foreign policy actions of most of the nations in the world.
So while we are talking about economic power, let's also talk about the soft power, the way we are actually controlling, you know, different sort of media and, you know, whatnot. So like, when you can take example of yoga, Ayurveda. So what do you think about the soft power that India is possessing right now?
I mean, if you go to Europe or European nations or in even the US, you will see more Indians there.
Yeah, there are so many restaurants.
Yeah,
yes.
I mean, you go and see, we see the big CEOs, or we see the political leaders in the West. Many of them actually have Indian origins, and they stay true to their origins as well. So I think that's already in play.
Taking on to CEOs, I think then we can talk about the global workspace, right? So like how a very young mind like us can be more like in the most confident, you know, personality, like seeing Sundar Pichai and like so many different people, Kamala Harris and so many people that we can take inspiration from, and how our policy you know, allows us to have this confidence in ourselves.
I think that's a great source of, you know, inspiration for especially the Gen Z, because, you know, we are able to see them through social media and through YouTube and all the other applications in the web, we see what their life is, and we hear the interviews. They also, like us, come on podcasts and discuss about the struggles and challenges that they faced.
Yeah.
So that provides us deep inspiration, I feel, and it also provides, yes, as a sense of confidence and a sense of pride as well. So I think that that's a positive thing, because having a large diaspora, and especially in good places, will, in the end, it will benefit us. They still try to interact with the Indian diaspora because they recognize the importance that our diaspora has. And like for example, in 2016, Honorable ex-president of US, Donald Trump, he released an advertisement where he said, "Ab ki baar Trump sarkar." So he was trying to get hold of the diaspora as well. And even Kamala Harris also, who's the vice president and now she's in the race, she also tries to speak about her Indian heritage and the struggle she faced.
While we're talking about leaders, I think then it's also important to talk about the institutions that they are a part of, right? So let's discuss more upon G20, Quad, BRICS, and how it is getting away from the idea of territorialization. So now we have deterritorialization, where BRICS has like so many different countries of various different geographical locations, right?
This deterritorialization is taking place because it's mainly because of, I think, factors like globalization, because we've realized that we are much more interconnected as a world, and post COVID we realized that with respect to supply chain issues, etc. So I think that now earlier the alliances were most probably they were guided by territorial proximity, and because most of the diplomacy in foreign policy, especially during the Cold War era, it was based and it was rooted in military power. But now we are moving on towards economic power and soft power, as we just discussed.
That's the case of globalization.
Yeah, so because of that, now I think deterritorialization is taking place, and countries have realized that there are some countries which may be good in some issue, and then some other countries which will be good in some other thing. So it's better to collaborate on different issues, so that you have a united front. And then we have global challenges like climate change and human rights, terrorism, which I think gained traction post 90s. So that's another factor which has led to the situation we see right now.
I think the presidency of G20 wasn't just enough a big deal, like it was something circular. But the way India used it as an opportunity was something very commendable. I think the way we used to celebrate Diwali, or we used to celebrate any other big events in our country, the whole nation was enjoying.
In G20 they had the concept of Jan Bhagidari, that every citizen will play a role in the celebration. So that is why they had a decentralized, because if we see in the G20 that was held in other nations before India, most of the conferences etc. were focused and centralized in the capital, on adjoining area. But we had more than 250 locations across the states. So states and central governments collaborated, and this benefited a lot. I mean, I think it was a huge celebration.
We showed them the real India.
Yeah, so we showed them the real India, displayed it to the world as well.
And I think covering on to that we are rebalancing and then balancing at the same time between our regional and the globalized identity.
And I think that this thing that we have this kind of multi-alignment where we are able to balance our domestic needs and interests as well as whatever is required in the global forum. This also, I think, sort of has its origins in our ancient Indian philosophies, because in ancient India, pragmatism and righteousness and dialogue, debate, and having a balance between all the different relationships was emphasized upon, and we can see that examples of those in our epics as well as our ancient texts. So that is also, I think, a great thing to witness happen right now.
How is Gen Z, or us young generations, we are engaging with foreign policy? What do you think is the role of media?
Earlier even I feel that as we were growing up, there was an age when people used to think that diplomacy and foreign policy, these conferences and all, it's all very boring. It's all boring stuff. Why should we'll watch cartoons or some movie or series.
Literally.
But now people are, the topics of conversation itself, it's not movies, it's not some film star, it's about S.J. Shankarji, or it's about India's policy at G20, or what are the challenges, etc. So, foreign policy and diplomacy has become really interesting these days. And I think social media obviously has a prime role to play in what is happening right now.
What do you think are the other ways that we as the young leaders or the young minds can influence foreign policy?
Well, I think that first thing is that we have social media on our hands, so we can, with respect to anything that we feel strongly, we can use social media to amplify our views and our voices, and we can collaborate with youth across the spectrum with respect to that. Secondly, I feel that we have platforms where you can make petitions, like for example we have change.org. So if there's any global issue with respect to which action has not been taken by our nation, or whatever action our nation has taken, we are not in consonance with that, so we can upload a petition, and then we can use social media to amplify that. And then there are many think tanks that have emerged in the recent past. So we youth can engage with think tanks, and think tanks do have a huge platform, and policymakers, they have policymakers' eyes and ears. So we can, as youth, we can also express ourselves through these think tanks and these things. And at the same time, I believe that there are consultations also that are held, and with social media around, we are in contact, we are in constant touch with our policy makers. So if anything is there, we can obviously we can mail them, or we can just message them, or we can tag them with respect to whatever we want to say, and we can give our views, and they are very responsive these days. So I think these are a few ways in which we can, so we have great power at our hands, and I think we should responsibly use it.
And